Look down at your toes right now. Go on, take a quick peek. Right now, your feet are probably trapped inside a pair of $100 padded, arch-supported sneakers. And if you tried to run barefoot across a gravel driveway right now, you'd be crying on the ground in roughly 4 seconds. Compare that to a dog, a horse, or a wolf. Animals walk barefoot on sharp rocks and freezing mud their entire lives without ever thinking, man, I really need a Nike outlet. Yet 40,000 years ago, your direct ancestors possessed feet that were essentially solid leather, gravel-crushing off-road vehicles. They had thick, rubbery calluses, wide, fan-shaped toes strong enough to grip wet granite, and flexible arches capable of absorbing millions of high-impact steps without complaining. Yet, somewhere in the Paleolithic, human beings made a bizarre evolutionary bargain. We voluntarily sacrificed our super-strong feet in exchange for wrapping them in animal skins and dried grass, turning our toes into soft, narrow little sausages that complain when we walk across hardwood floors. Why did we make this bizarre evolutionary trade-off? How do scientists prove when we started wearing shoes if primitive leather rots away within a few centuries? And how did one physical anthropologist solve this prehistoric cold case by staring at tiny fossilized toe bones and a terrifying microscopic monster living in the mud? To understand why we gave up our biological superfeet, you first have to realize just how formidable the barefoot human foot used to be. Long before asphalt, sidewalks, or insoles, early Homo sapiens spent millions of years walking, stalking, and running across unforgiving landscapes completely unshod. Evolutionary biologists describe the barefoot human foot as a masterpiece of natural engineering. Packed inside that single structure are 26 bones, 33 joints, and over 100 muscles working in seamless mechanical synchronization. But in a habitually barefoot human, those feet didn't look like the cramped, narrow appendages we hide inside dress shoes today. They splayed outward like a wide, powerful fan. Back then, your lesser toes, the 4 smaller digits next to your big toe, were not passive passengers. They acted like heavy-duty mechanical gripping hooks. Every time a barefoot hunter sprinted after an antelope across the savanna, those lesser toes flexed deeply into the dirt, gripping the terrain, distributing force, and stabilizing the body during high-speed turns. Meanwhile, the sole developed a dense layer of plantar callus. Not dead skin, but high-tech biological armor that retained full tactile sensitivity. Nerve endings acted like a real-time telemetry system, sending rapid ground updates to the brain about slope, texture, and moisture so the body could make instant micro-adjustments in balance. Our ancestors could track wild game for 20 miles in 90-degree heat without developing a single blister. So, if the barefoot foot was such an evolutionary masterpiece, why did we ever change it? And how can scientists figure out when humans started wearing shoes? If ancient footwear rots into nothingness. Bark sandals and animal hides don't survive in damp soil for tens of thousands of years. The oldest physical sandal ever recovered, woven from sagebrush bark in Oregon, is about 10,000 years old. The oldest leather shoe, found in an Armenian cave, is 5,500 years old. For decades, archaeologists hit a wall of total frustration. But then, physical anthropologist Dr. Erik Trinkaus realized something brilliant. If you want to know when ancient humans started wearing shoes, stop searching for rotten leather. Look at what shoes did to human bones. Dr. Trinkaus focused his investigation on the proximal pedal phalanges, the foundational bones at the base of your lesser toes. He relied on a fundamental rule of biomechanics known as Wolff's Law. Bone is a dynamic living tissue that responds to physical stress. If you subject a bone to continuous heavy mechanical loads, it grows thicker and denser. But if you remove that physical stress, the bone gradually becomes thinner and more delicate, a process known as gracilization. It's the ultimate biological rule of use it or lose it. Trinkaus gathered fossilized foot bones from various prehistoric eras. Foot bones from Neanderthals and Middle Paleolithic humans living between 100,000 and 40,000 years ago were remarkably thick, wide, and robust, the exact heavy-duty signature of individuals who ran barefoot their entire lives, flexing their toes to grip the earth with immense force. Then, Trinkaus analyzed human skeletons from the Middle Upper Paleolithic, dating between 40,000 and 26,000 years ago. Skeletons from Tianyuan Cave in China and Sunghir in Russia revealed a sudden dramatic anatomical plot twist. Their leg bones were still massive, thick, and heavily muscled, proving they were still walking and running enormous distances every day. But their lesser toe bones had suddenly shrunk. They were significantly thinner, slighter, and more delicate than those of their ancestors. There was only one plausible scientific explanation. These humans had started wearing supportive, thick-soled footwear on a regular basis. By placing a protective barrier between the foot and the ground, the shoe absorbed the impact shock and took over stabilization during push-off. The toes no longer needed to flex violently into the soil for traction. As a result, the lesser toe bones lost their structural mass. Shoes took over the job of the toes, and human anatomy adapted immediately. This discovery pushed the origin of footwear back by tens of thousands of years, but unlocked a deeper mystery. Why wrap our feet in the first place? The most obvious answer is climate. 40,000 years ago, modern humans expanded into the freezing tundras of Eurasia during brutal Ice Age glacial cycles. Walking barefoot across sub-zero ice was a fast track to frostbite. Losing a toe to frostbite meant losing your mobility, which meant you couldn't hunt. Effectively, a death sentence. To survive, Ice Age hunters wrapped their feet in thick deer skins, insulated them with dried alpine grass, and bound them with sinew. In Sunghir, Russia, skeletons were even buried wearing fitted, elaborate leather boots, decorated with thousands of carved ivory beads. However, freezing cold wasn't the only silent killer on the ground. There was another, far more terrifying reason to cover your feet: soil-borne parasites. In warmer regions, microscopic hookworm larvae thrive in damp soil contaminated by fecal matter. When a barefoot human steps onto infected soil, hookworm larvae burrow straight through the bare skin of the sole, enter the bloodstream, travel to the lungs, and crawl into the small intestine. Thousands of hookworms latch onto the intestinal wall with sharp teeth, feeding on blood and causing severe anemia, chronic fatigue, and immune collapse. By placing leather between bare skin and infected mud, early humans accidentally built the world's first biosecurity shield against microscopic invaders. Yet, despite saving us from frostbite and parasites, footwear triggered a profound biological trade-off. The moment we put on shoes, we trapped our dynamic feet inside rigid containers. Over thousands of years of wearing shoes, our foot shape altered permanently. Because shoes compress the toes together, our once wide, fan-shaped feet narrowed down. The big toe was gradually pushed inward toward the second toe, giving rise to modern foot deformities like bunions, painful bone misalignments virtually unknown in barefoot populations. Furthermore, supportive footwear changed how human arches function. In a barefoot human, intrinsic foot muscles are constantly working, building a high, resilient muscular arch that acts as a natural shock absorber. But wrapped in a rigid sole, those muscles no longer need to work. They weaken and collapse, causing flat feet and plantar fasciitis. Even worse, thick shoe soles muted sensory feedback. Instead of receiving precise details about the ground, our nervous system gets muffled signals, forcing us to slam our heels onto hard pavement, sending harsh impact shocks straight up into our knees, hips, and spines. Today, we spend billions on high-tech running shoes with foam cushions and carbon fiber plates, all to fix the exact foot pain and weakness caused by wearing shoes in the first place. We've created a classic evolutionary mismatch. Our genetic blueprint expects us to sprint barefoot across natural earth with strong, wide toes. But modern life forces us into narrow footwear on unforgiving concrete. Yet every time you lace up your sneakers, you're participating in a 40,000-year-old survival tradition. We willingly sacrifice the raw power of our toe bones so our species could march out of Africa and conquer every cold corner of the planet. We gave up nature's all-terrain tires to build our own armor. And while our toes will never crush gravel again, that simple leather wrap ensured that humanity kept walking forward. What about you? Would you ever swap your cushioned sneakers for a lifetime of barefoot walking on natural terrain? Let us know in the comments below. Until next time, stay curious.